What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a interesting video, in my opinion at least, about Divinity Original Sin 2 and the Pillars of Eternity games. Now, technically it's like the whole series, really, if you want to get into it. More specifically, Divinity Original Sin 2 and then kind of both of the Pillars games. So something I've thought for a very long time is that these games are incredibly similar and that they basically have the same broad plot. Now, yes, there are differences between the two games, obviously. Divinity, that entire series, leans way more into its own humor, and Pillars of Eternity tends to take itself more seriously. However, if I were to ask you, hey, which game was it that had the ancient race that turned themselves into gods that then began to feed off of an energy source from living mortals from their own separate dimension when mortals die? But then that game sees the destruction of those gods and begs the question, what will the people of that universe do going forward? Could you tell me which one of these games I was talking about? And the answer is probably no, because it's both of them. So my channel is largely focused around three things: Divinity Original Sin 2, the Pillars of Eternity series, as well as Pathfinder. Here lately, definitely a lot more Pathfinder. But that said, I tend to cover CRPGs very broadly. And nothing has stuck out to me more personally than the similarities between the plot of these two series. So to go a little more in-depth there, in the Divinity series, we of course see the Eternals, specifically 7 Lords of the Eternals, rise to godhood through finding basically the font of all life, that is to say source, which can be described in a lot of ways, but essentially the gods feed on that, which fuels their apotheosis into godhood. And then those gods create the races, specifically as a means to gather energy throughout those races' lives, and then when they die, each respective god eats the energy from their respective race. And then, of course, in Original Sin, we actually see the death of those gods. And then we look at the Pillars of Eternity series. We have the Ingwithans, who managed to turn most of their civilization into the gods. Now, in their case, the races of the world already existed. However, once those souls enter the Beyond, as it's called, the gods feed off of their soul energy before reincarnating them to fuel the wheel, which is part of that game. And then, in Pillars of Eternity 2, we actually see one of the gods themselves, actually, as opposed to the void slowly weakening and draining the gods in the Divinity series. But in Pillars here, we actually see one of the gods themselves, Eothas, break the machinery that helped them perform their apotheosis, kind of breaking the cycle of reincarnation, and will eventually lead to the death of the gods if they don't figure out a solution. Now, yes, obviously there are nuance to both of those stories, especially with, like, the divine in the Divinity series, as well as all of the lore and stuff for the Pillars series with their animancy and everything, and the gods actually not creating the races. But like I said, it always stuck out to me that you could very easily identify that incredibly similar plot thread for both of these series. And it always kind of made me chuckle, and I just wanted to share that with everyone else and kind of see if people agreed with me, and maybe just discuss why that we see such a similar idea in both games. But with that out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching. Truly, could not do this without you guys. The channel is growing all the time. Cannot thank you enough, but may you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.